Biographies of World Figures. Dennis Gabor, pioneer of holography technology. Holograms or three-dimensional display photos are one of the discoveries that has had a big impact on the development of human technology to date. And the figure who contributed most to the discovery of holography was Dennis Gabor. Dennis Gabor was born on June 5, 1900 in Budapest, Hungary. He is the eldest son of Bertalan Gabor with Adrienne. Since childhood, Dennis has been very interested in physics. Around the age of 15, he had taught himself calculus and studied through Chwolson textbooks. Even though he was interested in physics, Dennis decided to study engineering at university, because the profession of a physicist was not very popular at that time. At the age of 18, Dennis entered the Budapest Technical University and studied engineering. He then continued studying in Berlin. Become an inventor. Dennis completed his studies in 1924 and earned a doctorate in electrical engineering 3 years later. Apart from studying electrical engineering, Dennis also has a profession in the same field, but his work almost always utilizes applied physics. While completing his doctoral program, Dennis developed one of the first high-speed cathode ray oscilloscopes, and in the process created the first iron-sheath magnetic electron lens. In 1927, after completing his doctoral program, Dennis joined the company Siemens & Halske KG. At that company, Dennis made his first invention, namely a high-pressure quartz mercury lamp with superheated steam and a molybdenum ribbon seal. His findings were then widely used in lighting as street lights. However, this discovery apparently occurred accidentally when Dennis tried to make a cadmium lamp which ended in failure. In 1933, the Nazis led by Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany and Dennis chose to leave Berlin. Having lived in Hungary for almost a year, in 1934, Dennis decided to move to England. In England, Dennis met Marjorie Louise Butler, who later became his wife in 1936. At that time, England was still in the depths of the Depression and it was difficult for foreigners to find work. However, after trying to find, Dennis was finally accepted at the British Thomson Houston BTH Company, as an inventor. Dennis stayed at the company for approximately 4 years until the end of 1948. After World War II ended, Dennis wrote many papers, even on communication theory by developing a stereoscopic cinematography system. Starting holography research. Until the end of 1948, Dennis began his research into holography, which was initially called wave reconstruction. This research also started by accident, because Dennis initially intended to create an improved electron microscope capable of viewing single atoms. Gabor's research, which focused on electron input and output, led him to the concept of reholography, with the basic idea of creating perfect optical imaging that uses all information, not only in terms of area as in ordinary optical imaging, but also shape. Dennis began publishing a series of papers about the development of his research until 1951. At that time, during 1950 to 1953, Dennis collaborated with the AEI Research Laboratory at Aldermaston. The research carried out by Dennis has not been able to show real results for almost 20 years. Not before the invention of lasers. However, early holography was finally realized in 1964, after the laser, as the first coherent and bright light source, was discovered in 1960. After that, commercial holography finally became available. In early 1949, Dennis moved from Rugby to London, where he joined Imperial College. 10 years later, in 1958, he became a professor of applied physics until his retirement in 1967. Nobel Prize. Apart from being an inventor, Dennis Gabor also wrote his thoughts into a book entitled Inventing the Future, published in 1963. The book discusses the three main threats to modern society, which according to him are war, population explosion, and what he called the age of pleasure. The book also contains a famous phrase, namely the future cannot be predicted, but it can be created. Dennis Gabor retired in 1967. However, he remained associated with Imperial College and was a senior research fellow. In 1971, Dennis Gabor was finally named the sole recipient of the Nobel Prize in Physics for his discovery and development of the holographic method. In his Nobel lecture, Dennis presented the history of the development of holography, which began in 1948. Gabor died in a nursing home in South Kensington, London, on February 9, 1979. He had no children from his marriage to Marjorie. In memory of the inventor of holography, a blue plaque was installed at Queen's Gate No. 79 in Kensington, Dennis Gabor's residence between 1949 and the early 1960s.